Tucked away in a bight on the southern tip of the Avalon, you'll find the place they call St. Shott's. It's exposed, it's windswept, it's barren, yet it's a special place to those who choose to live here. The Finlays and Malloys were the first to come to St. Shott's. That was many generations ago, in the early 1800s. Other families followed. While the rich fishing grounds just offshore was the main attraction for those early settlers, the land too had to be cultivated, for the fishing season was short and the winters long. Sheep and cattle were brought in, crops were raised, and St. Shott's grew into a fine little community of fishermen farmers. To the people who lived here and braved the wild winter storms, St. Shott's was more than just a fine place for fish. It was a fine place to live in, too. To this day, it has a community spirit that few places can match. Its people pull together through good times and bad. It's a spirit and a pride that's born, I suppose, of isolation, of having to do things for yourself and for your neighbors in order to survive on this wild and lonely shore. One day last summer, Land and Sea went to St. Shott's to go fishing with Martin Malloy.
Well, Martin, it's a pretty rough place that people chose to live here in St. Shott's years ago, isn't it?
Yes, certainly is, but I don't know how I go. That they come, or it must be the fish.
It's
fishing or something. You know?
It's a rough place to fish from too, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, but it's a good place to get a few fish. There's a lot of boats around from everywhere. During the summer, they're here from Francois and all along the shore.
St. Shott's awakes before dawn in the summer when the fish are running, especially on days when the boats have to be launched. All the able-bodied men appear as if by magic, and one by one, the boats are eased into the water.
Tell me now about going out from here in the morning. So, do you have to launch the boats every morning?
No, not every morning. We leave my hand at Harrow till it's given out for a rough or something like that. But once when it gets up late in the year now, in September, or the last August, we have to haul them almost every evening now. So it's a racket then every morning. The first thing you got to do is wait for everyone to come around, get everyone under one hand. And if you're short on men or anything, you usually launch probably 10 boats, and then one boat will bring back the rest of the boys to help out the fellas ashore. It'll take 2 hours, good, an hour and a half anyway to get them all out.
And you've got to have just about everybody in the place helping.
Well, everyone, especially all the fishermen, you all be there as 2 men do it. Usually 2 men fish in a boat, so 25 or 26 men rather.
So it takes a lot of cooperation to fish in a place like this.
Well, if you didn't cooperate, you wouldn't do it. Especially hauling them up in the evening, 2 fellas can't do nothing. One fella to go up to the engine, to haul them with, and one fella can't do nothing with the boat, so it takes probably half a dozen men to haul her up.
So you're 2 hours now when you've got the...
That's the first thing, yeah. That's the hardest part of the day's work too, regardless of the fishing. That's the hardest part of it, getting out the boats.
But there's not always you have to do that in the summer.
Oh no. Some summers, during 1980, it was an awful year. We'd haul about 20 tons for the summer. But the last couple of summers was good, 3 or 4 times. Lots of times, there could be a storm on, you can't do nothing about it. We were right there last year a few times, and we were wishing that the boats hauled up, but you couldn't get out there. So we just had to leave them there then, let take.
It's a hard place indeed for boats out here on this headland. But there are distinct advantages to fishing in St. Shott's too. And the main one is that the fishing ground is no distance at all away.
If you're going straight off here on the shoals, it's only 15 minutes, 14 minutes or something like that. But sometimes we have nets in the shore. The worst bit of river will probably take an hour to go to Ballon, It's the longest run. And in the fall, when you're jigging and hand on, you're all over the ground, you're different places. But most of the nets to be around handy. In the shoal water, only 7 and 8 fathom water in places where they be there.
Now, there's not always sunny out here on the water off St. Shott's, is it?
No, that's for sure. Although it's not as bad now as it used to be. These last few years it's actually been very good.
The cod trap is the mainstay of many inshore fishermen in the early part of the summer, but not here in St. Shott's.
Martin, tell me how you fish here now in St. Shott's. What kind of gear do you use?
Well, it's gill nets and some trawls and the fly hooks and the jibber, lead jibber. That's about it. We don't be after salmon or anything like that.
It's all codfish.
It's all codfish. Yeah.
But now, when do you change, and what gear do you find best?
Well, the gill nets are the best of it. It's the easiest way, I think. And especially when the capelin comes around, the fish gets glosses. You can be real good in the gill nets. When the capelin goes, it's like the fish, gets hungry and it goes better for the bait than the trawl lines or the fly hooks or squid and that kind of stuff. There a few years ago, the fly hooks were real good.
How many hooks now do you have on a line?
And the fly hooks, 6 or 8. Some fellas, it's an as tangley with 6. Some fellas has 10, 8.
So there's no bait, they just go for the feather on the...
That's it. Yeah. It's very easy, boy. Yeah. It's a bit tangly sometimes.
Yeah. Do you get more than one fish now at a time?
Oh, yes. Well,
I notice now there's quite a few boats out in the fishing ground these days.
yes, an awful lot of boats. They're from everywhere. There's long liners from some areas and down on the southern shore and all around the bay, Bonavista Bay and Trinity Bay, all up there sometimes. When the fish slackens off wherever they're to, they come to Dravasi.
Well, these would be longliners mostly, I suppose.
Yeah, mostly long liners.
How do most fishermen now feel about that? Are they uneasy about it? Do they worry about them being out there?
Well, they cooperate very good, but in the foggy weather now, you're kind of worried. There's been a few narrow escapes. But most of them are reasonable and understands that you're only there under them in a little small boat. But for some other fellas, they don't care, they just go on.
So when the fog comes in, you're uneasy out there?
Oh yeah, it is. It's a bit tricky, see. The ocean just full of boats. It's unbelievable. They're saying an average day 120 and it's only a small patch of ground.
What do you worry about? Just them running you down?
Yeah, running it down is the worst, yeah.
Is that a fairly new way of fishing around here now with those flies?
Yes, the old fellas never did any of that. I mean, it's only since we started, someone tried it.
So is this an important part of the fishery now, this type of fishing?
Oh yes, it is. Well, you could save your summer. If it wasn't good for the gill nets, you'd evaluate that.
When do you give up on the flies and try the jigger, or do you use them both at the same time?
Well, sometimes they'd be too strong a tie going for the fly hooks. They won't stay at the bottom. So you get the jigger then, and you only get to make a jig, and you're lucky enough to get a fish then. So that's on a big strong tie. The jigger don't be used that much now. We still have it there and still use it in a scattered time, but very little.
So I guess you got to use whatever gear seems to work best.
That's right, yeah.
Finally, it's time to call it a day, to head for home, to point her bow for that notch in the cliff they call St. Shott's. Since St. Shott's doesn't really have a harbour, the boats must wait their turn to unload. While they wait, the fish are gutted and put in a bag. Unloading your catch in St. Shott's is quite different from years ago, when all the fish had to be pronged by hand to the wharf.
It was nice days, night out, just smooth and everything. You just got the fish out there, you got your boats moored off and throw it into the bags, probably hold 1,000 pound the bag, and tow it in, hoist it up.
Do you find the bag is a pretty good way?
It's the best way, One time when they were splitting the fish and that, they used to have to prong it up with a fork, on the wharf, every fish one at a time. It's a lot of work to it. But the bags, the real answer. I mean, the fish to be washed clean, everything getting towed in the gallery. And there's no big strain on the fish because there's no weight on it when it's in the water, and it's only just while it's going up, it's only a couple of minutes and it's into the backs and it's dumped into the rock. So it don't affect the fish.
Now, I suppose you got to wait sometimes too for your turn.
Oh, sometimes it'll be busy, especially late in the evening in the jigging time, trial, you know. Yeah, you probably have to wait maybe 10 boats ahead, yeah, you know, trucks or something. You know. It's no trouble to lose a couple of hours after you're late or sitting around waiting to get your fish. Although it's not bad here, you know, everyone cooperates.
So, Martin, all told, you're pretty happy you chose the life of a fisherman here in St. Shott's?
Oh yes, well, loves fishing. I mean, I sooner fish and work anyway. Oh yes, a grand life. Like it's lad.
Land and sea returned to St. Shott's in the middle of the winter. The sea was rough, as we figured it would be, but the air said it couldn't be the middle of February. There was no snow anywhere. And Mr. Tom Finley was out spreading kelp on his land, and the sheep were having a midwinter holiday. But the people of St. Shott's were prepared for the cold weather anyway. Practically every yard had a pile of wood. You've got to scrape around for wood here in St. Shott's, and the people there laugh at their plight. When I commented on the crooked sticks, one man said, yes, we've got every letter in the alphabet except an I. They say the crows here have to bring their own branches to pitch on. You need a pretty good education to be able to saw this stuff. Yes, we had a lot of fun discussing the timber reserves of St. Shott's. But now here's a resource that no one is laughing at: peat bogs. The countryside about St. Shott's is blanketed with them. Thick, rich black peat lying there just beneath the moss, enough to fuel the country. The Southern Avalon Development Association, with financial aid from government, has an ambitious program underway to develop the peatlands of the Southern Avalon as a source of fuel. Pat Hewitt is in charge.
The association figured that if people are going to burn other than oil in a region such as this, that maybe we should be looking for something other than wood, and peat came up as an alternate.
Especially in an area like this where it was part of the tradition years ago.
Part of the tradition years ago, and another interesting factor about the peat in the St. Shott's area and Southern Avalon, as well as the Bjorn Peninsula, and as I understand the Cape Shore is quite similar. It's a very good quality of fuel peat. It's very high quality fuel peat.
And you've got lots of it around.
There's a fair bit of it around, yes. A lot of blanket bogs around.
After field surveys are done to check the depth and quality of the peat deposits, a plan is drawn up, and the bog is ditched and drained.
But what we're doing here, we're preparing a new area for expansion in the future. And hopefully everything goes well with the project, with the demonstration project, we'll be moving over into this area. We have an extra 10 hectares here now. What we've done is put in the perimeter ditch around, and the field ditches up here. See those small field ditches running through there. So that's just about completed now, and that's what we'll be doing with that for this year.
It's really a straight line right through it. You follow the line.
Oh, you follow the line right straight through as you're doing there, yes.
Yeah. Now, what kind of peat have you got coming out of the
well,
ditch?
Right here you can see the different kinds of peat, because what you got here is peat that was taken out of that ditch, and that goes from the surface down to about a metre and a half. So when you look at this peat here, that's taken from fairly low down in the ditch.
Yeah.
That's the good fuel peat, that one. Now, if you look at this stuff here, it's got more fibre in it. That's closer to the top, you see?
Oh, yeah.
And if you squeeze that, you'll see that even that's got some fuel peat value in it. But this here, it's real greasy stuff. And even better still, if you get to and you get a piece of this real black peat here. It's got a real greasy feel to it.
Oh, so that's a really good field you've got here.
A really good fuel peat, that is. Yes, no doubt. The top layers are lighter, and sometimes you get water from it. Even the top layers.
That's good right to the top.
Yes, even the top layers in these areas. So there are certain places here you don't have to go any more than 4 or 5 inches below the surface, and you get into a good fuel peat. But that's one of the ways you'd know, by squeezing it.
Now, somebody
And-
from Lamoline told me you can tell by sticking your finger in peat, too.
Oh yes, no problem. You just stick your finger in, and you hear it popping when you know, you can just hear it popping there.
That means it's good.
Oh yeah, that means it's good. Yeah. If you do it in a lesser quality, you don't hear the pop.
You got no good, bad quality here. Looks like it.
No, it's pretty well all good stuff.
Okay, you've got your bog all drained now. What's next?
Well, the next thing you do is you take what's known as a screw leveler or a screw profiler. It's a large machine with the screw auger in it, and that cuts the fields out near the ditch, takes about 8 to 10 inches, and moves it towards the centre, and gives your field a crown shape. It's about, normally it would be about 14 to 15 inches higher at centre than out at the side of the ditches, so that rainfall will run off, and also it tends to lower the water table in the centre of your field, so it gives you, eventually will give you a good drying surface to dry your peat sods on. In our case, because of our heavy rainfall and the excessive wet climate, we've decided that 14 to 15 inches wouldn't be enough as a result of some of the things we found out last year, and we've gone now to increase it to 18 to 19 inches. So after that, after we've crown shaped it, the next thing we do is use a grader. It's similar to a road grader, except it's an attachment on the back of a tractor. It's got the grader blade on it, and that's used to just remove all the small lumps and bumps and grader tracks and whatever that's in the field. You smoothen it out to get a nice, smooth, level surface. And after this, you come in with the extruder, this piece of machinery we see here. You bring this in, and just it cuts down to a depth of 20 inches, takes up the peat and extrudes it through a 3-tube tubing system, and it comes out, it's almost like a sausage maker. It comes out in long strings and breaks off at various lengths.
Now, this is the peat that eventually will dry and become fuel.
That's what will dry and become fuel, yes. It forms a sort of a protective shell as it comes through the extruder. It's macerated in the machine. It's all the fiber content is all broken down, and it comes out with a nice smooth surface, and that forms a water repellent surface after 3 to 5 days of drying, so it doesn't reabsorb water readily. After about 7 to 8 days of good weather, you would turn it and then just leave it on the fields for final drying.
It looks like there's quite a bit of this can come out of that extruder then in the course of a day's work.
Oh yes, there's a fair amount. Yes, that depending on the conditions, depending on the length of your fields and so on, the extruder can certainly put out a lot of peat in the day.
Now, once it comes out of the extruder, of course, you pray that it won't rain for the next 3 or 4 days.
For sure, yes, and you call and get the forecast and cross your fingers and all these kinds of things. That's for sure.
It will ruin though if you do get rain on it.
Yes, it seems there's a critical time from our experience in the past summer that if we get rain in that first 3 to 5 days, it tends to wash down, because what has happened, the peat has been broken down, and it's just there sitting there as muck. You can't even pick it up in your hand. If the water hits that, it'll wash right back in. Now, after 3 to 5 days, this won't happen.
Now, this will shrink, I guess, suppose, too, and of course the weight will be much less than it is now.
Yes, the shrinkage, it appears that it will shrink down to about 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 inches from a 3-inch diameter tubing. And the weight loss would be certainly be 50%.
And now, what sort of moisture do you dry the peat to now afterwards?
Ideal drying would be 35 to 40%, around 38% is ideal for sod peat. It's extruded at roughly about 90% moisture, 90 to 95%.
Now, there's another way to make peat too, isn't there? You can do it by hand.
Oh yes, we've done it here by hand, you know, with the Irish sleighing, it's called. We brought them from Ireland in 1980. A delegation from here visited Ireland, looked at the operations there. That's when we were in the planning stages for this project. That's a very interesting tool. It's used quite readily in Ireland. In the years gone by, it's sort of dying off now. As a matter of fact, the Irish Peat Authority, the board in Amona, at one time all their peat was produced by hand cutting with the sleighing. But for the last number of years, they've been into even much larger scale machinery than we have here.
Of course, you don't have to use a sleighing. You could use a square nose shovel too, I suppose.
Traditionally, that's what was used. Just like sort of a square nose shovel, a spade, or whatever. You know, something that's straight on the side so that it cuts the face of the bag nice and straight. Even in Lamoline right now, a fair bit of peat is being hand cut, and that's what they're using there right now.
Now, why do you go this route, though, with the machinery? Does it really make that much difference? I mean, couldn't you just go out with shovels like you did years ago?
Well, there's a couple of things about a machine operation. One, it's faster. You can put out more peat. If you were to get into a commercial production, or especially if you had an industrial user, and you needed the large volumes of peat, you'd have to be in a machine operation, or have a lot of people working in the hand cutting for sure. Another major advantage to doing it with machine cutting is the condition that your bags are in after you finish. When you hand cut, you tend to get almost like holes in the bag, cutovers they call them, and it's uneven because it's cut right to the mineral soil. And if the mineral soil is up and down, when you finish, the land is up and down, it's got a rough surface. With the machine cutting, you cut it down till you leave 18 to 20 inches of peat on top of the mineral soil, and it's taken off uniformly, and it's real nice, smooth, level fields. Good to plant some trees in, or some pasture, grasslands, and this sort of thing.
Pat, this is the finished product here.
Yes, this is the dried peat sod. This one here, you can see how coming through the tubing system, it has formed a nice smooth surface, and that after it dries 5 to 7 days, for sure, 5 to 7 good drying days, will repel water. It won't reabsorb rainfall.
So it's sort of, I guess, compacted outside, tightened.
It's compacted outside, and it has shrunk down from about 3 inch diameter. Now you can see it's about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches.
And this is the stuff you hope that someday will be used all over Newfoundland.
This should be the stuff, yes, hopefully.
And so, for the first time in a long while, the peat fires are burning in St. Shott's. It's only an experiment so far, but it brings back memories of a time when most families here used the bogs as a source of fuel. Did you ever think you'd see the day when people be burning peat again?
No, I thought that was over. How
about you, Ms. Malloy? Did you ever think you'd see peat in the stoves again here in St. Shott's?
I never thought of it. Thought it was all gone. Forgot about it.
Yeah. It gives a nice heat, though, doesn't it? Nice even heat.
Nice even heat, yeah.
How does it compare with wood or coal? Or is it better or worse, or the same?
I wouldn't say it's better for heat, a big heat like wood or coal. Coal is, the main thing for heat, right?
Yeah. Well,
But that gives a nice steady heat,
Nice, puts a nice smell around the place too.
Yeah, right. Especially outside.
Yeah.
It's good stuff to burn, though, when you get it dry.
Yeah. So you like to see it coming back?
Yes, I'd like to see it come back. Oil is so expensive now and everything else. So if you could get something like that, you'd spare a lot of money.
Spare a lot of money. That's the idea. To cut down on the rising cost of energy. To make use of an abundant natural resource. The peat fuel development project continues here in St. Shott's. They're trying to prove that peat can be an economical fuel to heat homes, and perhaps eventually plants and factories too. And why not? It works in Ireland. In fact, peat harvesting there is an industry that employs thousands. We too are an island rich in peat, almost limitless reserves, and few places are richer in peatland than St. Shott's, here on the Southern Avalon. And so the people of St. Shott's look forward to the day when there'll be a rich harvest on the land as well as on the sea.